So you've finished your animation and you want to render out a movie. So before you go and render out a high quality image sequence that you can turn into a video, you do a video test render. It's called a Playblast. So first we just want to go into render settings, just get your width and height to match your actual final product. So I'm just going to go 720 by 480 and close render settings. So this is the movie. Just going to hit play on it. Okay, it works. So a Playblast is a viewport movie render. So to do that, have the perspective view open. Make sure your resolution gate is active, which is in view camera settings, and go window, Playblast, Playblast settings. And it'll ask you if you want your hold time slider or just a start and end point. So for this, I'm just going to go hold time slider. I'm going to go format AVI. I'll leave it no codec, and from render settings, and hit Playblast. And we'll go through every frame and create a movie from the viewport. So there it is. So use the Playblast to make sure your animation is correct and your camera shots are okay. Once you've got a Playblast and you think you're ready to actually render, go to render settings and start with the common tab. First thing you want to do is, by default, Maya will be displaying a single frame render. You want to change that. So you want to go from single frame to name hash dot extension. So name number dot extension. Maya will by default output a Maya if image. Most commonly for image sequences, Targa files. So let's use Targa as the image format. Then you want to set a start and end frame. So in this case, this is 300 frame movie, but I'm just going to go 1 to frame 150. So I'm just going to render half the movie for this. Choose the camera you're rendering out of. In this case, it's the perspective camera. If you've created a new camera, you'll have to pull that up. Okay, next, go to the quality tab, and by default, Maya will have production quality at 0.6. So if you put that at 1.2, but pull from presets, the production preset, it'll drop back to 0.6. So my advice is to pull the preset first, load production, and then up the quality to about 1.2. If you get any artifacts in your render, you might have to bring that quality up a little higher. The basic render settings ready to go. I'm going to close the render settings window and go to my rendering drop down and go render, batch render, and click it. And in the menu at the bottom of Maya, it should count through the frames as it's generating the imagery. Okay, so I started a batch render and I realized that the shot is just way too boring. So I'm going to put a little bit of movement into the shot. So the first thing I need to do is go back to frame 1, and I want to select the camera I'm looking through. There's a shortcut to do that. It's view, select camera. So I'm going to hit S to keyframe frame 1. I'm going to go through to frame 100, and I'm going to zoom in to the sun. And make sure my camera is selected, and hit S to keyframe. So I'm going to play that back. Alright, good. So I'm going to go back to frame 1 and generate the batch render again. So if you look at the bottom of the Maya window, you'll see result rendering with mental ray, and it'll start counting through the frames I've assigned to the batch render. Okay, so the render's finished. What you've got is a huge page of images, one image for every frame. Just open that. So that's 150 frames. Now what you'll need to do is open FJEC. So just do a search for it on your Mac or your PC. FJEC. This is a frame checking application. Ships with Maya. So go File, Open Animation. navigate to the first frame of your animation and hit open. An F-check will process each frame individually until it's gone through them all, and then it'll run the animation in a loop over and over and over. Okay, so I'm going to assume you guys are rendering your final projects on a Mac. If you're rendering on a PC, you're going to have to use a third-party application to put this sequence back together, which is what I do. I use After Effects. You can do it in a free program called Imagen. You can also do it in Final Cut Pro, and you can do it in QuickTime Pro. In this case, I'm on a PC, so I can't, but all you'll have to do is on the Mac, open that first frame, go File, and you can save it out as a movie. And just choose QuickTime Movie, uncompressed, and save it out as a self-contained movie file. Incidentally, guys, when you start a batch render, once you've started, you can actually close Maya. If you want to stop the render, you're going to have to open Maya again and go to Render, Cancel Batch Render. That's the only way to stop a batch render, or use your task manager and actually stop the process at the computer end. Okay, I thought I'd just add one last thing. I don't know if you noticed when I had F-check open, the sun was flickering. That was a bit of animation I added to the sun myself. So what I did was I selected the sun, I went Window, Node Editor, and you can do this in the Hypershade or the Node Editor, pretty much the same way. So I open that, I hit Delete to clear my workspace, and I right click and go Graph Materials. And I'm just going to delete this node. This is the node I created to make the sun flicker. So this is the light surface node that is making the sun glow. And what I did was select the node, and in the attribute editor, under intensity, at frame 1, I put a value, right clicked, and set a keyframe. And that creates the intensity node. And then I went to another frame, change a value, right click, and set a keyframe. And just like any other node, I select the node and go to the graph editor, select the curve, and create a cycle. In that case, I didn't want it to be too stark, so I actually made the tangents to be spline curve. And you can keyframe pretty much anything in Maya using that right-click method in the attribute editor. If you've got any questions about rendering a movie file, or you're working on a PC and not sure which application to go through, send me an email or give me a call between 6:30 and 9:30 weeknights.